Britain used to have a month where nothing new was allowed to happen. There was no such thing as a fresh start. There was no reinvention. There was no new me energy. It was just you sitting in the life that you've already created. And we called it July. Britain used to have seasons, not just of weather, but of feeling, of vibes, whole months that carried a certain mood, a certain rhythm. Like the country itself knew when to sort of push forward, but also just when to calm down a bit. And July was never the main character of our year. She was not Christmas. She was certainly not Beltane. July is the middle chapter where everything is already in motion and you don't get to start over. You just have to sit in what it is now. But Britain used to understand this feeling, and we used to mark it not in a big dramatic festival kind of a way, but in the traditions that circle the same idea that this part of the year wasn't about becoming something new. It was about tending to what already existed. Now, if you're new to my channel, this is just part of the little series that I'm doing to mark the lost traditions of Britain, the stories and the legends which created the culture of the British, the moments which connected all corners of this country together. Because sometimes you need to remember who you were to understand where you're going. So obviously we have to start with St Swithun, because of course we do. St Swithun's Day is on July the 15th, which is, I believe, the day this will be going up, where it's the day that we all collectively check the weather in Winchester, and somehow that decides the emotional tone of the next 40 days, come rain or shine. I'm sorry, but that's not a feast day. That is proof that our obsession with weather is deeply ingrained, like it's in our DNA at this point. And the story behind it is even better. Swithin was a bishop in Winchester who basically said, I'd quite like to be buried outside, please. He wanted to make sure that people could pass by his burial tomb, and the church went, no, and moved him inside. And he responded by cursing the country with 40 days of whatever weather showed up on his feast day, which is, I mean this respectfully, not very saintly behavior. This is absolutely the energy of someone who sends a per my last email with zero regrets. We literally built a tradition around a man holding a grudge using the weather. And people have the audacity to say that we're not a serious country. But beneath the drama, there's something very July about him, because you can't control the conditions. You just get to live through them. And July, more than any other month, is about that moment of, well, this is where we are now. Just continuing, living through the month of what will be, will be. Now, St. Mary of Antioch on July the 20th, who gets swallowed by a dragon and then just calmly exits the situation by bursting out of it like it was some kind of minor inconvenience. Honestly, I wish I handled my problems like that. And because of this, she becomes the patron saint of childbirth and protection, which makes sense because July is the strange point in the year where everything is forming but nothing is quite ready. And in Britain, her cult was everywhere. Over 200 churches dedicated to her, which means that at some point the entire country collectively looked at a woman escaping a dragon and went, yes, that feels relevant. And right in the middle of all of this, since Mary Magdalene's feast, which also is fitting, a month where everything looks quiet on the surface, but the real story is happening underneath. And by the time we reach St. James's Day on July the 25th, July stretches its legs a bit because suddenly we're not sitting still anymore. We're walking because it's pilgrimage season, a season of honouring those who walked these shores. And it's funny because it's one thing to sit in your life and hope it improves. It's another to ask yourself, am I even going in the right direction? Not in a big dramatic kind of way, not in a I'm going to quit my job and move to Bali kind of a way either. It's just checking in. And woven throughout all of this month are the tiny rituals that kind of just feel invisible now, because it's the first fruits. It's the cherries, it's the blackberries. Instead of just eating them immediately like a normal modern person, people would offer them out first. And there were meadow blessings too, walking the edges of fields that weren't quite ready, blessing something in its almost stage. And I think that's just very, very July. because nothing is fully formed, but everything is on its way towards the ripening of harvest. And then there's haymaking. Long days, shared work, a bit of laughter, a bit of flirting, a sense that what you're doing matters, even if it's not glamorous. And I'm not saying that haymaking had Beltane energy, but I am saying that a lot of relationships probably started in suspiciously tall grass. Even the Romans, in their own way, seemed to understand this mood. They had a whole festival called Neptunalia, where they literally built little leafy huts and just sat in the shade drinking. That was it. That was the ritual. And then, right at the end, moving into August, we have the dog days, the long, humid, slightly heavy stretch of summer where everyone's a little bit tired, a little bit irritable, and one slightly wrongly worded email could absolutely send you into a spiral. And instead of just pretending that emotion wasn't happening or that it wasn't real, people used to acknowledge it and just slow down. They used to just take care and not push it, which feels kind of radical now. So maybe that's what July really is, a month of maintenance. And I think that's harder than we admit because we all love a fresh start, but July doesn't give you that. It just hands you your life and says, okay, this is it. Look after it. Take it all in. So when you look outside the window for St Swithun's day, just remember, if it's raining, he's still not over it yet. As always, do think about giving me a like and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.